Hello everybody, Rybread here, and today we will be tier listing all of the items in Risk of Rain 2, at least in the base game. If you want to see the stuff from the DLCs, I will be making separate videos for those. How this is going to break down is, as you can see here, we have all the items available to us in the base game. I did leave out Lunars because I feel like those are way too circumstantial to really properly rank them, and also I don't use a lot of Lunars when I play the game, so I'm gonna leave them out because I don't know too much about them. There's a few that I obviously gravitate towards that I enjoy using, but I think it would be just kind of unfair and we would be here for way too long if I did rank it. I also left out equipment. I feel equipment is extremely situational in most runs, and there's also enough that I think eventually I'll make a equipment tier list for everything in the game, including DLCs, so more of that later on, I guess. So we'll be focusing on the base game items. What is the lens that I will be grading this through? Primarily, I will be grading these items as if we were playing Eclipse 8 and going for a Mithrix kill. We're not looping. We're not doing like random other stuff in the game. We're just doing stages 1 through 5, going to the moon, killing Mithrix, and leaving in Eclipse 8. That's how I'm grading these on. However, if there are items here that I have like a special use case, say in like Simulacrum, I will bring it up, although it will not impact my rating here. So yeah, before we get into it, guys, I also want to remind you, if you are new to the channel here, or if you enjoy this content, I welcome you to subscribe, drop a like on the video, but let's get into it. Starting off, we have the ever popular armor piercing rounds, and to start here, I'm gonna give armor piercing rounds a B. The reason I give the AP rounds a B, it's generally a good item. Obviously, it's going to give you more damage against anything with a red bar, so any teleporter boss or Mithrix himself. So if you are lacking damage in other parts of your build, and you have the opportunity to stack this, I do recommend it. But it does only work on bosses, and there's obviously a lot more damage items in this game that is going to give you damage to all enemies, all targets, no matter what type of enemy they are. So that's why I have to put it lower. It's really only good for the bosses, Mithrix being one of them, but it's a B. Up next, we have backup mags. I am going to give this an A. This is a little bit of a funky one because it is kind of situational. Obviously, a lot of the characters benefit from having additional stacks of their secondary ability. That's what it does. It gives you additional stack of the secondary ability. That varies based on the character you play and how you play that character's kit. I'm thinking really hard on characters that I don't spam secondaries on, and only a couple really come to mind. So it's gonna be stuff like Captain. I don't really use his taser shot all that much. Not that it's bad, it's just kind of out of habit. It's not something that I spam, so I'm not always thinking about it. It's not front of mind when I'm going through a run. But so many other characters, like more glaives with Huntress, more of whatever you choose of your secondary on Commando, more up swipes or whatever with Mercenary. Pretty much every character has a net benefit over this, so stacking this is a very good thing to do when you're going for that Mithrix kill. So that's why I put in the A slot. Up next, we have Bison Steak, fresh meat for those who are the OGs. I'm gonna give this a C. Reason why I'm giving this a C is that, and not quite an item scrap, is so what it does, it just gives you additional health. It doesn't scale, it stacks linearly. So it's if you get a lot of them, you have a very beefy health pool, no pun intended. But you'd rather just have active healing. You'd rather have a healing item that is gonna benefit you when you're actually in combat, and not just when you get hit. Oh, you get a little bit more wiggle room, I guess. When you're getting towards endgame anyway, a lot of stuff will hit you so hard that you're not really gonna think about, oh, good thing I have all that Bison Steak. It's not really that good. There's a couple of characters that benefit greatly from this. The main one being False Sun. False Sun, the more health he has, the growth intrinsic or passive is activated, so the more stacks of his ability you get. So False Sun is really the one instance where more Bison Steak means more power. Everything else, all the other characters, it's just very much tied to like, oh, more health, cool. It's not really gonna be noticeable in most runs, so personally I scrap this 9 times out of 10, but False Sun alone, with how powerful it can be, is why I keep it out of the instant scrap. And yeah, so that's Bison Steak. Up next, we got Fireworks, and this may be unpopular. I'm gonna give this a B. And the reason why I'm giving it a B is because how it synergizes with certain things in the game. I know we're talking base game here, but I will be referring to DLC items as well when it comes to synergies, because it does take effect in most games. Most people own the DLC. If you don't, I'm sorry, a lot of this stuff won't make much sense to you. But if you do own the DLCs, like I assume most of the community does, synergies do matter. So Fireworks I put in the B. It's usually something that is first to go if I do find a scrapper and I know I need to make white scrap. There are cases where this is actually a very helpful tool. There's a couple of strategies, whether if you have a lot of drones and you know, like for instance, like Mithrix is going to kill a lot of your drones, or if you're in any environment where you know a lot of drones are going to be going down, buying it, when you buy those drones back, or if you buy anything, it's a good thing to generate what I just call passive damage, which is basically you're interacting with other things in the game that is not your character's kit, whether that's just moving around, buying items, and doing that creates damage on the field. It's kind of like the, hey, look, mom, no hands type thing. More on that in a little bit with a couple more items here. To me, Fireworks are valuable when you have a lot of buyables, when you're in an arena that doesn't have many targets and you know that you can buy stuff. Stuff like working with like the Caffeinator and pairing it with like a pocket ICBM is very good because you triple your missiles, or your Fireworks in this case, and it does decent damage. For me, it's really between B and C tier. It kind of tiers that line. I'm gonna give it the leg up because there is a decent amount of synergy when it comes to Fireworks in this game. So that's why I give it just the leg up into B tier, just because if you do build into missiles, whether it is like I need to have a bunch of interactables like drones in your loadout, or I have a pocket ICBM, it becomes a very powerful tool that can output a decent amount of damage, especially in late game. All right, Bustling Fungus. I'm gonna get a lot of hate. I'm gonna put this in instant scrap. Reason being, there's really only one character that takes advantage of this item, and that is, of course, Engineer with his stationary turrets. If you don't know, Bustling Fungus is an item that when you stand still, a little circle forms around you and your allies heal in that circle. And this game does not incentivize you for standing still most of the time. So I cannot say that this is a good item to keep in your inventory. And the only place where it's really benefiting the player is when you're playing as Engineer and you're using the stationary turrets. Obviously, if you get a fat stack of these guys and you put your turret down, a huge healing aura comes up and you become nearly invincible. It is a good tool in that one instance, but that's the only instance. Every other character I play and I get a Bustling Fungus, I'm scrapping that immediately. It's pointless. It doesn't need to be there. Any other healing item is gonna treat me better than a Bustling Fungus, so that's why I am leaving it in the instant scrap tier. Up next, we have Cautious Slug, and I am in the lens again of Eclipse 8. I'm going to put this in A tier. This is one of the better passive healing items. It stacks pretty decently too. I'm not really going to go too deep into numbers in this video because I want to make the runtime somewhat brief so we're not here all night. Essentially what it does is when you're out of combat, your healing accelerates. It's a very nice thing to have when you're doing Eclipse because your healing is already stunted. In those nice little in-between mob section to get your health back quicker is a very good thing to have. Again, it stacks nicely. It gets your health back relatively quickly after just a couple of these things in your inventory. It's something you don't have to think about. It is something that isn't procced by getting hit, which is something down the line we'll talk about here, why I think that's not a good thing to have necessarily for an item. So I think just as a passive healing item, this is very good, especially in the white tier. It's probably the best healing item in the white tier. So A tier, it's a solid pickup. If you're doing Eclipse, I recommend at least trying to get a couple of these, whether it's through printers or just dumb luck opening up chests. It's good to have at least a small stack of these. It helps out a lot. Up next, we have Crowbar. I do like some really fun synergies with this, which mainly being Void Sent Flame from Survivors of the Void DLC. Outside of a few characters here, I'm gonna have to put this in C tier. And again, this is in the lens of Eclipse 8. Pretty much any other time you're playing this game, I would say this is probably a bit more worth keeping in, because hitting hard on that first shot can take you a long way in different modes. But when we're talking Eclipse 8, this is kind of like a nothing burger of an item. A crowbar could be turned into scrap, which could be something that could provide you additional damage for the rest of the fight, not just the first hit. So once again, you get to Mithrix. Once that first hit's done, all right, you just have a stack of useless crowbars in your inventory. It does hit hard off rip. It does stack really nice as well. So, I mean, if you're able to get a lot of these in a 5-stage run to get the Mithrix, I guess it's kind of nice to have, because if you don't have a pillar skip, for instance, getting through all the Chimera and all that stuff on the moon, having a couple crowbars is nice. Also, different kits work with it better. Like, I wouldn't be caught dead with a crowbar if I was playing someone like Commando or someone that just has like really weak tick damage out of their primary. But stuff that hits hard like Huntress, Railgunner, there's a lot of characters do benefit because they're either their secondaries or their primaries hit very hard. So there is benefit to having this. But I say overall, in the pursuit of killing Mithrix in Eclipse 8, it's usually something that I scrap relatively quickly. A few case instances where either I have a synergy with like a Void Sent Flame or something like that, I see it worth keeping, or if I'm confident that I can get close to a one-shot with the damage provided from Crowbar, then I'll hold on to it. But I'd say 9 times out of 10, I'm scrapping. All right, up next we have Energy Drink, and this sucker is going right up into S tier. Nothing is more important in Risk of Rain 2 Eclipse runs than movement speed. Movement speed is the name of the game. The best thing you can do is dodge damage, and the quicker you are, the easier it is to dodge damage. The easier it is for you to get out of trouble. So speed is king when it comes to doing your Eclipse runs. So that's why this goes in the S tier. 20% sprint speed. Too much of these can get a little unwieldy, but in my opinion, you can never be too fast until you are, which I mean, basically when you're too fast is like when you tap the sprint button and you're all the way across the stage. It takes a lot to get to that, and most of the time you're not going to get to that in an Eclipse run. So energy drinks, top tier, S tier, always pick it up. If you see a printer, print into it. No debate. Up next, we got Focus Crystal. And Focus Crystal, I'm kind of torn on it, but as far as strategies go, I'm going to put this in the A tier. This is probably one that goes a bit more into like a situational A. It really teeters between A and B. It works very, very well with melee characters. Obviously, what it does is a little pink bubble surrounds you, or a little pink ring surrounds you on the ground, and anything you hit within that bubble takes an additional 20% damage. So obviously you can see where characters that have all their attacks done within that melee range, this is very powerful because it is the equivalent of a watch that never breaks. Sorry, watches are in Survivors of the Void, so we won't be talking about that here, but if you own the DLC, you know what I'm talking about. It's basically a watch that never breaks for melee characters, and that's a very good thing to have. Obviously 20%, you stack 5 of those, that's pretty much, that is equivalent to having permanent crit. Obviously pair that with crit, that doubles it. It's a very powerful, in my opinion, underrated item. Anytime I'm playing a melee character, whether it's loader, acrid, mercenary, even some other stuff that I know, like I'll keep these on Captain, Void Fiend, because when he's corrupted, most of the damage happens within the ring of a focus crystal. All these characters synergize extremely well with this, and it's a really good way to amp your damage. So if you're playing the right character for it, and you know you're going to be comfortable being up close and personal with the enemies, this is one of the best items you can have in your inventory. So that's why I put in the A tier. Again, a lot of characters you're not really engaging at range, so I can understand scrapping it. Also, I can understand a lot of people putting this in either B or C tier for that reason, because like there's just a lot of characters that don't take full advantage of this. But when you do have a character that can, it is, in my opinion, one of the best things you can have. All right, up next, gasoline. This one, I feel like it's not controversial at all to say this. I'm gonna put gasoline in S tier. I stand by the notion that gasoline is the most important early game item in the game. To me, having just that little bit of AoE that does decent damage, it is just the most valuable thing you can have. It makes boss fights way easier, especially when you have a lot of ads swarming you, as the teleporter does accelerate ad spawn rates along with the boss. It's a good way that if you're not hitting hard single target, you can target weaker ads to torch the boss when they're like around the feet of the boss. To me, gasoline is definitely like, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage if I am in the first couple of stages without a gasoline. If I'm able to pull a gasoline on stage 1, I already know that I'm likely going to win that run because everything else just became way easier for me. For me, it's an S tier. It doesn't really lose its effectiveness as you go along. It's really once you get to Mithrix that it obviously doesn't work, because there's not really, until you get to phase 3 of the fight, there's really no ads to proc this to damage Mithrix, so it's kind of pointless when you're talking for the Mithrix fight. But everything else leading up to that point, you have to get the Mithrix if you want to fight them. And to me, gasoline is probably one of the most important items, one of the most fundamental items in a kit to be able to properly deal with ads, especially in the Eclipse state. Up next, we got Lens Maker's Glasses, or as we just call them, crit goggles. This one's kind of a no-brainer. S tier. It's double damage, 10% to proc a double damage hit. It's a kind of a no-brainer. It has a hard cap of 10 items, and you get 100% crit, so you don't have to seek out like a ginormous stack. Once you're at 10, you're good. You don't have to worry anymore. If you see a printer, you know exactly how much you need to print to be dealing double damage all the time. This is a very important item to have. Procs a bunch of other things in the game that we'll get into a little further down the list here. It is a very fundamental and important item to have. You're really restricting yourself with your damage output if you can't find crit goggles. So this one is a pretty no-brainer S tier. Up next, we have Medkit, and I'm gonna put Medkit, I'm torn between either instant or C. I'm gonna go insta scrap, and I'll explain my reasoning for this. When you're playing Eclipse, or really when you're playing Risk of Rain in general, the goal is to not get hit. And that's why earlier in this, I was preaching so much about having good movement speed with your energy drinks and what have you. A movement speed is good, makes it easier to dodge. So why would I then incentivize an item that requires you to take damage for it to proc? For that reason, it does help you in a bind. I will give it that. Its usefulness is not nothing. It's not like just a completely useless item. Obviously, if you get hit, it works. But you really shouldn't be encouraging the type of play that would proc it in the first place. In my mind, just get rid of it. Unless if it's the only healing item you have and you're really struggling, I always scrap medkits. It's usually one of the first things to go on my list. Up next is Monster Tooth Necklace. I'm going to put Monster Tooth in the C tier. Monster Tooth Necklace is interesting, whereas it's rewarding you for doing what you're supposed to do, and that is killing enemies. However, I tend to leave it behind because it's just not a very good healing item. It doesn't give you a lot of health, especially with only one stack. If you get a few stacks of this, it is pretty effective, but obviously you have to go physically pick up the orbs that give you the healing on kills. So it's not really ideal because it's not just giving you health back directly, but it's a good healing item. It's a good early game item where things are moving a little slower. You can kind of see it's pointless when it comes to the Mithrix boss fight, because obviously there's really only one person in the arena with you, and that's Mithrix. Obviously you get some ad spawning in, and that does help you, but not enough to justify keeping it. Again, its healing is kind of weak. There's a lot of other things that just out heal it, and it's a lot easier to get the benefit from. So C tier, I'd say it's keepable if you're really struggling to find anything else. It's usually not a keeper for me. Up next, we got Paul's Goat Hoof, another movement speed item. I am kind of tearing between S and A tier, if I'm being completely honest. I think just with my philosophy of this in general, I'm gonna have to go S tier. Once again, our movement speed item. This affects your movement speed versus your sprint speed. So the energy drink only procs when you are sprinting. The goat hoof is anything, and it does also kind of work in with energy drink and other movement speed items as well. If you get a fat stack of this and a fat stack of energy drinks, watch out, you're gonna have a fun time controlling your character. The reason why it's up here at S as well, while it doesn't grant you as much movement speed as an energy drink does, I forget what the percentages is. Let me actually check. Energy drink is 25% sprint speed, which I may have said 20% earlier on. Apologies if I got that wrong. Whereas Paul's goat hoof is 14% movement speed. So it doesn't make you move as fast as the energy drink, but unless if your character has agile attacks, you're gonna feel the hurt when you stop sprinting to attack something. So always having a good balance between energy drinks and goat hoof to me is a good thing to have. And it also does, again, it does affect your sprint speed, just not as dramatically as an energy drink does. So being able to strafe away from damage, characters like Rex or any just like slow moving character, Acrid's another one, also benefits from this nicely, because if you're not sprinting and you're trying to strafe back and forth, it can get kind of hard to dodge the damage that's coming at you. So having a few of these is definitely a huge help. Again, in the S tier, because pretty much every movement speed item with a few exceptions is probably going to find its way here, because when we're talking Eclipse runs, movement is the name of the game. All right, up next we got PSG, Personal Shield Generator. I'm going to put this in B tier. Reason being is that while it does add on to your health pool, it makes you more beefy, more tanky, it doesn't really serve too much of a purpose outside of that, besides just giving you a different type of health bar that regenerates quicker. Obviously there's some synergies in this, like if you were to take the Transcendence lunar item that turns all your health into shields, you obviously want a lot of these, because that's the only way you can up your health pool outside of another Transcendence stack. And obviously if we're looking into the DLCs, it helps you out with stuff like Void ATGs, plasma shrimps they're called. It does have its uses. It's a fine item to have. I would rather have more aggressive healing items. It's usually one of those things that I kind of toss by the wayside in exchange for higher tiered items when I see them in printers. So I mean, there's really not too much to say here. Adds more to your health bar. It can be helpful in certain circumstances, but to me, it's kind of a whatever, if you take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter type thing. There's not too much to say about the Shield Jenny. Up next is our Repulsion plates. And this one, I am going to maybe catch some flack here. I'm going to put this in the A tier. It doesn't really have too powerful of an effect, and it has diminishing returns as well. Basically what it does is it reduces all incoming damage by 5, which is plus 5 per stack, but again, the diminishing returns, it cannot reduce the damage down below 1. So basically you stack these guys and you take less damage on hits. This is especially helpful when it comes to Eclipse runs, especially Eclipse 8 runs, because if you get enough of these, and enough isn't a lot, like I'd say maybe 2 or 3 of these, what I consider like tickle damage, so stuff like gunners shooting at you from a decent range, obviously they can't be like barrel stuffing you, wisps, stuff that doesn't hit particularly hard, does not proc the Eclipse 8 modifier, because there is so little damage being done because of the reduction that these provide. It's a really good survival item. In my opinion, when the hierarchy of importance when it comes to Eclipse items that you should be getting, it's movement speed 1, damage 2, and honestly like 2.5, because they're so darn close, it's damage reduction. And Repulsion plate is one of those. Obviously, if you're able to trade up these Repulsion plates for something like a Tougher Times, I would recommend doing that, because taking no damage is better than taking reduced damage. But this is an item that works for you all the time. It doesn't have a proc chance, it's just always there. It can help you keep your health bar up in early stage situations where there's just a lot of like whatever ads that don't do enough damage that like makes you concerned in any other time. But say you get hit by 10 wisps, before you know it, that curse is growing on your health bar and you're already losing a core of your health bar. So having something to just kind of completely mitigate that away is a good thing to have. So that's why I put Repulsion Plate in A tier. Up next, we got Roll of Pennies. This one, I'm really kind of in between C and Insta Scrap. I'm going to put it Instant Scrap, but there is usefulness for this, at least in early game. What this item does is when you get hit or when you take damage, you earn money. Like I said before when we were talking about Medkit, why would you pick up an item that incentivizes you for getting hit? But when you eventually do get hit, at least it benefits you. It's an okay item to have in the early game because when your gold is reduced in Eclipse, when your gold earnings are reduced by whatever the percentage is, it's like 20%. The early game trying to get money to buy the chest and move along your run in the first couple of stages can be hard. But I also don't recommend just standing there with this item and waiting for a beetle to headbutt you so you can get some cash to go buy a chest. You're better off just killing it and moving along. It's just not worth it. Obviously, there's some funky synergies with some equipment that you can do with this. But again, at the end of the day, it requires you to get hit, take damage for it to proc. So I don't recommend it. Up next, we have the Rusted Key. I'm going to put Rusted Key, I'm going to put it in B tier. This is an interesting item because it's just a consumable, basically. What it does is when you pick it up, the next stage, a rusted lockbox will spawn and you can go and open it up. It will consume the Rusted Key, and the rusted lockbox contains a green item or higher, so a green or a red. So basically, it's a free large chest is what it boils down to, which when you're talking items, hey, that's pretty cool. That's a nice thing to have. It's one of the things where I don't really bother scrapping it until we're to the end of the game and I'm trying to make piles of scrap for the soups on the moon. Or unless if I see a scrapper that I really want the item out of and I'm just kind of out of options, I'll get rid of a key. There's really not too much to be said because it seems like a no-brainer. Hey, with this white item, you get a green or a red item. That's kind of a no-brainer. So if you have it and there's no reason for you to have white scrap, keep it. Find your lockbox, open it up, and get the rewards. It's also a good way to just burn a sales star right away and not have to worry about seeking out or saving up for a large chest. Because it's a free large chest essentially. So I'll put it in the B tier because it's a take it or leave it item. Moving on to Soldier's Syringe. I'm really kind of between S and A tier for this. Attack speed is good pretty much on every character. I can't really think of a character where attack speed does not benefit them in a huge way. I'm going to put this in S tier just because of its sheer utility. Obviously, being able to attack faster means more damage output and less time you have to spend looking at enemies or stick around in a potentially dangerous situation. So amping up your attack speed is helpful for everything. It's not complicated. It's a pretty easy S tier. Sticky bombs will be living in B tier. They used to be really good because they used to do insane scaling. You can always like look back to when this game was in early release, before full release, and this thing was insane because I think it also had proc chance in it, or it had a higher proc chance in it. It scaled everything around, or it scaled all the damage being dealt by it. So I'm making no sense with what I'm saying. It used to be way more powerful. It's still an all right damage item, and it can, I believe, still proc stuff like your ATGs. Basically, 5% chance to on a hit attach a bomb to the enemy, which detonates for 180% damage. So it's decent damage. That damage doesn't scale, and that's what they got rid of out of the early access period of this game. The damage no longer scales, just the proc chance does. So it scales literally from 5%. So you need 20 of these guys to have 100% proc chance. Personally, I don't ever go for that. If Sticky Bomb is in my inventory, it's kind of like, okay, I'll keep it. Extra damage is extra damage. It's not a lot of extra damage. Extra damage is extra damage. You can't complain. It's very middle of the road. So that's why it belongs in B tier, in my opinion. Stun nades. For me, stun nades will probably also have to live in B tier. It is a very good effect to be able to just stop your enemies dead in their tracks. It's it's a good thing to have. It's the same proc chance as the sticky bombs. It's 5%, which stacks 5% for every stack you do have, and it stuns the enemies for 2 seconds. So basically just kind of stand there and they can't attack you. It's just a decent utility item. It doesn't work on bosses, that should be noted. You're taking this into Mithrix, it's not going to work on Mithrix, it's not going to work on your teleport bosses. But when you're talking about crowd control, being able to stop a mob of enemies rushing you is a good thing to have. So it's kind of similar to what we were saying with the sticky bombs. It's kind of a take it or leave it. It's not hurting you, it's not helping you probably as much as you'd like, but it's fine to stay in your inventory. Up next, Topaz Brooch. I'm between Insta Scrap and C. I'm gonna put it in Instant Scrap for, again, through the lens of Eclipse 8. I don't really see the point in this item unless if you're rocking a Forgive Me Please and you have a fat stack of these to basically give you double your health bar. What it does is on kill, it gives you a small overshield barrier, and if you're killing enemies in rapid succession, that continues to grow. It can grow to be pretty much twice the size of your health bar. If you're rolling with a large stack of these and you're killing a lot of ads, it's a very good item to have. But the thing is that you're probably in a 5-stage run to get to Mithrix. You're not going to have a huge stack of these, and you're just not going to see much benefit from this item. So for me, it's an insta scrap. Obviously, like a character like Loader doesn't even need it because it's intrinsic to her kit kind of in the first place, and it's on hit with her and not on kill. So for me, it's kind of a worthless item to have in quick runs. When you're looping, if you're looping, I can see the benefit. If you're playing Simulacrum, I can also see the benefit. I don't know. I think Brooch is just a waste of space when I'm doing Eclipse runs, so I just scrap it right away. Tougher Times. Good old teddy bear. I'm going to be putting up an S tier. This is a very good item. Any item that can completely block damage like it never happened is a good item to have. It does stack exponentially. It does have diminishing returns after a while, but if you just get a stack of 4 or 5 of these guys, you're going to be blocking a lot of damage. And again, name of the game for Eclipse runs, it's dodging damage and just not taking damage. Obviously, it works very well with stuff like Clover, pretty much re-rolling it to proc in the positive direction. Tougher Times is definitely an item you want a fat stack of. It's usually one of the first things I want to print. If I see a printer, I will go all in on it happily, no problem. Pretty no-brainer S tier there. Up next, we got Tri-Tip Dagger. Let me see. What do I want to put Tri-Tip in? I'm going to put Tri-Tip in A. It's a very good damage item. It's a good damage over time item, which helps with pesky elites such as Overloading, that if you don't touch them for a little bit, they get that shield back. This is something to keep them at bay. It works better with the faster fire rate characters versus the slow. I'll always pick up a bleed, but I will trade up for a different damage item if I have a slow rate of fire character. But when you're talking about stuff like Commando, even though this is a slow rate of fire character, it's very good for Captain because each of his pellets have a chance to proc it. Essentially, this is a DOT, damage over time item, that has a 10% chance per stack to bleed an enemy for 240% of your base damage. Very good thing to have. It again is one of those items similar to crit that you know exactly how much you need to have this permanently up, which is 10 again. So for that reason, it's good. My only apprehension when it comes to Tri-Tip Daggers is, again, certain characters, it's amazing. Other characters, you could do better. So for that reason, it's an A tier. Man, this video is gonna be long. I've been talking a lot. To wind down the white items, I will be putting Warbanner in Insta Scrap. This item just doesn't have a lot of utility when you're talking about playing Eclipse. It works as intended, but again, you really shouldn't be standing still or in like a small confined area for a marginal benefit to your fire rate and movement speed. I don't really see the benefit of keeping these. Even on Engineer, like, I don't even know, can turrets even proc these? I never hold on to them, so I honestly don't know. I don't really see the benefit. Unless if you can get such a big stack that covers the entire stage, there's really no point in having these. Just one of these is like, it's nice for the teleporter boss, sure. It's nice for the teleporter boss. But that's really about it. I will concede though, if you're playing Simulacrum, this is a good item to have because you are stuck in a smaller confined space. Having this proc and giving you a nice little aura of ability boost is a good thing to have. Continuing on to the green items, we are starting off hot with the AtG. This is a no-brainer. This is an S tier. Very high damage comparatively. Very good item, mainly for your procs. It is a 10% chance to fire a missile that deals 300% damage. This is it also will add additional 300% damage per stack, so it stacks very nice, very, very nice. And it can also proc any other sort of proccable thing. So it can crit, it can bleed, it can proc your bands for you, more on that in a bit. It can proc sticky bombs, and also procs can also proc it. So you can actually have a nice little feedback loop going. You have to be very lucky for it, but it is a very good item. I feel like not too much more has to be said, but yes, it's kind of like the do-it-all additional damage item. It's just very powerful, mainly because of its proccing abilities. So yeah, S tier, very easy S tier. Bandolier up next here, and you know what, I'm gonna put this in B tier. It's usually not an item that I hold on to because when you're talking about the green items in this game, there's a lot of things that are better that I would rather have. So for me, it often ends up getting scrapped. What it does is it has a chance of dropping a little package on the ground that refreshes your character's abilities. Very helpful, especially for stuff that has a very long cooldown time. One instance where this item can be very, very filthy is if you're playing as Captain with Diablo Strike equipped, because that takes forever to come back, and just picking up a little package on the ground and it just gives you that ability back is a very, very good thing to have. So that's really like the one instance that I can point to where it's like, that's where it's worth keeping a Bandolier. Other than that, I'm pretty much always going to trade this up for a better green item at some point in my run. Berzerker Pauldron up next here. I'm going to put this in the C tier. This is another one that I will keep as I'm going through these stages, but right before I go to Mithrix, I will always get rid of this because it is pointless unless if you are using a Forgive Me Please as your equipment. Basically what it does is after gaining a certain amount of kills, you go into a frenzy. After killing 4 enemies within 1 second, it sends you into a frenzy for 6 seconds that improves for 4 seconds per stack, which increases your movement speed by 50% and attack speed by 100. So when you're mobbing, a very good item to have. And again, synergizes well with the Forgive Me Please equipment. Kind of useless when you're trying to kill Mithrix. So it's usually something that I scrap. Reason why it's in C tier is because, again, compared to a lot of our green items, I just rather have a lot of other things. So that's kind of where it finds itself at C tier. Up next, we have Topaz. Topaz, I will put in B tier. This is a good item for slowing the enemies, and that's exactly what it does on hit. It does slow the enemies. Yes, it does slow the enemies. It's not a proc chance. It always happens if you hit an enemy with your attack and you have it's a Chronobauble. I just called it by its void name. Chronobauble, not Topaz. Sorry. It will slow the enemies by 60% for 2 seconds, and the stacking adds an additional 2 seconds per stack. So again, it's a good mobbing tool. It also works on Mithrix. Pretty much it's a good way to slow down the fight, allow you to be more in control, makes it easier to avoid getting hit, especially by melee characters. So overall, very useful item. It's something that I'll keep. It's nothing real. It's not something that I would normally scrap because of its usefulness, but as far as overall power, it kind of lands in the B tier because it does its job, and that's about all it does. Next up on the list, we have Deathmark. Deathmark I'm a little conflicted on, because while it is a good item, and it does provide a nice little damage boost, that being 50% additional damage, it does take a lot to work up to, but by the time you're in endgame, you shouldn't have much of an issue. Essentially, you need to get 4 debuffs applied to an enemy to then have an additional 50% damage dealt to them for 7 seconds. And the more you stack of this, the longer that duration goes. It scales linearly an additional 7 seconds for every stack. I'm going to put it in A tier just because, I mean, damage is damage. And if you're proccing it, it's one of those things that you don't have to think about. It's just always kind of there. I'm not really going to knock it down too far. It does kind of teeter between A and B tier. But yeah, that's kind of where I will leave Deathmark at. All right, Fuel Cell. Fuel Cell, very straightforward. I'm gonna also put this in B tier. All it does, it gives you an additional stack of your equipment. In most cases, this is very helpful because obviously more equipment means more damage or easier to get around whatever equipment you have. That kind of determines it. Obviously, there's a few instances where this doesn't need to be in your inventory, like if you have a executive card or an aspect. You don't need stacks of it, or a wood. Well, I guess wood sprite does kind of work. Pretty much every other equipment in the game does make good use of this, so that's why it's an A tier. It's very useful, good to have if you are someone that likes to use the gesture of the drowned lunar item. It synergizes very well with that, and if you get enough of gesture and enough of fuel cell, it's essentially a permanent uptime on your equipment, which is a lot of fun to play with. So A tier is just a solid item that just provides you more. And that's what this game is all about. Just more damage, more movement, more whatever. It'll help you out. Nor's Tome, I'm going to be putting in Insta Scrap. Kind of in the similar vein of Roll Up Pennies, where money after the first couple of stages isn't much of an issue. While it is helpful for sure, and you can also use it with like Crowdfunder to get just a lot of money and be able to run that equipment for longer. It's usually one of the first things to go for my green items when I see a scrapper, so I can print something better. Personally, I don't like holding on to tomes. If I get one to drop on stage 1, I'll hold on to it for the first couple of stages to help me along to buy the stuff. Really, I'm not gonna try too hard to hold on to onto a Nor's Tome. Not too much more has to be said there. Harvester's Scythe. I'm going to be putting Harvester's Scythe up in the A tier. This is a very good healing item. You heal whenever you hit for critical damage. So obviously with this, you need to be able to get your hands on a lens maker glass, or kind of weird how I said that, on a lens maker glasses to be able to properly utilize a Scythe. When you do have a lot of crit though, it is a very good healing item. It does heal aggressively. I believe the percent is, oh wait, no, it is just a flat number. It's 8 health plus 4 per stack. It should be also noted that this item does grant you 5% crit chance. There's another green item that we will be talking about in a little bit that does the exact same thing. It'll give you additional 5% crit chance. So even if you don't have any crit glasses on you, this is going to be a very nice tool. Just get you a little bit of crit and some healing along with it. One of the most sought after healing items whenever I'm playing around, especially even just a couple of crit, you're pretty much set with a Scythe. So overall, pretty powerful item. Up next, we got our wonderful Hopoo Feather. I am putting this in S tier. There's really no secret as to why. An additional jump, again, mobility is everything when we're talking Eclipse. Vertical mobility, especially in the Mithrix fight, being able to stay airborne for a period of time with a double jump. Having a few of these is very, very helpful. You can pretty much avoid any damage that Mithrix tries to throw at you, with the exception of his gun and his pizza attack. So and also just navigating around when you're in the higher Eclipse levels, the fall damage is doubled and lethal. So if you accidentally fall off a ledge, you can save yourself, and that's also a very, very good reason to have an Hopoo Feather in your inventory. So S tier, pretty much like everything I've been putting in S tier, it's a no-brainer. Up next, we got Infusion. I'm going to be putting Infusion in, I'm really between A and B on this. I'm going to say B. Reason being is, even though this should be kind of judged in a vacuum, this did get a massive downgrade from Risk of Rain 1. Infusion, what it does is essentially On kill, enemies drop these red orbs that track to you, so you don't have to track them down, but it gives you an extra health point for every red orb you consume, and it maxes out at 100. In original Risk of Rain, it was unlimited, which admittedly would probably be a little overpowered in Risk of Rain 2. It falls in kind of that same problem that Bison Steak did, whereas more health isn't necessarily going to help you. Again, unless if you're False Sun, where you benefit greatly for having a larger health pool because you get more of stacks of your abilities. If I pick it up, I'll keep it. Like, once I have an Infusion, I probably won't let it go. But if I don't see one during the run, I'm not beat up about it. It's kind of inconsequential if you don't get one. So it's, again, very middle of the road. It provides, in my opinion, obviously more benefit than the Bison Steak does, which I think Bison Steak was like a flat 20 health, whereas this gets you an additional 100 once you get the 100 red orbs. Next up, we have the first heavy hitter damage item. That's not true. We already had AtG, but another heavy hitter in the damage department, and that is a Runald's band. This goes in S tier, and I'm gonna just kind of spoil this now. Both bands will end up in S tier. Oh wait, sorry, this is Kjaro's. This is Kjaro's. I can't remember. This is Kjaro's. I said Runald's. Both Runald. It doesn't matter. You know what? We'll do this now. You know what? Let's jump the gun. We're gonna do this now. Both bands go into S tier. Both of these operate the exact same way, and they also work with each other. It's a nice little handshake when it comes to their cooldown. A band is a band. They'll always proc at the same time. They'll have the same cooldown. So if you spread the damage evenly, or if you spread the stacks evenly, it doesn't really matter. You're going to get the benefit, and you're going to get the benefit quicker. Essentially what these both do, hits that deal more than 400% damage, proc this, and the difference here is Kjaro's spawns a fire tornado that does 300% damage, an additional 300% per stack, so a very good damage item. And then the Kjaro's is same deal, 400%, but this has the added benefit of slowing the enemy by 80% for 3 seconds as well. It does a little less damage at 250%, and also I'm getting these two kind of, or two messed up, not messed up, but we're just kind of spitballing here, so bear with me. The Kjaro's has a very nice technique with it, where if you use it right, or if you save it for the right time in the Mithrix fight, you can completely skip phase 4 of the Mithrix fight. If you get to proc one of these with Mithrix in the middle of the arena and kill him at the end of the phase 3 of his fight, that fire tornado will spawn, and it will just completely blow past or like it catches him in this weird little transition frame, and it allows you to kill him right there. He doesn't take your items. You can just move on with your day and get the win. What this boils down to, both these items, very good. If you see one, pick it up. If there's a printer, print them. If you see a band, you take it. Both of them, S tier, no brainers. Leeching Seed is up next, and Leeching Seed for me is going to go into a C tier. It's not a very effective, but it's a very reliable healing item. So what this does is dealing any sort of damage heals you for 1, +1 per stack. It should be noted that that isn't necessarily true. It kind of lies. I think what they mean in this is for every 100% damage you deal, it's 1. Because it's not 1 for 1. If it was 1 for 1, that'd be crazy. It would be very overpowered. It does stack fairly nicely. Obviously, a +1 linear is pretty nice. But yeah, I mean, it says it right on the wiki too, is that it does say like it heals for 1, but that's not necessarily true. It kind of lies to you. It's a little misleading. So it's not very powerful healing, but it is still active healing, which is the thing you want when you're doing especially Eclipse runs. So it's got the C tier because it's not nearly as powerful as a Harvester's Scythe is, but it still is helpful. If you're struggling to find healing and you come across one of these guys, it's a good pickup. It's a good thing to keep. It's at least gonna help you, but if you can trade up for a Scythe or anything like that, I would definitely recommend doing that. All right, blowing right through the greens here. There's a lot of items in the base game. You don't really realize until you are like midway through. It's like, man, I've been talking for a while. This record session just crossed the hour mark. I'm feeling it. Anyway, to not make it much longer, Lepton Daisy. I'm playing this in the instant scrap. This just sends out a healing wave periodically in teleport fights. It's helpful when it does happen, and it definitely can save your butt in some situations. I pretty much brand this as pretty much useless in the grand scheme of green items. It's just not like it does it, I think, once per fight, and maybe more if you have stacks of it. So it's like, and that's even if you're in the teleporter, and when you have an eclipse modifier that shrinks the teleport zone, it's kind of a worthless item in my opinion. So it's usually out the door as soon as I get it in my inventory. Guillotine we're gonna put in C. The reason why it's in C is that it just doesn't really have any use in boss fights, or it does if the boss is an elite, but it doesn't help you at all for Mithrix, and it's just one of those items that I'm gonna scrap before I go to Mithrix. Having that little bit of extra is a huge help when you're mobbing, especially for characters like Acrid that cannot actually kill an enemy with the tick damage of their poison attacks. So having this is actually kind of a dirty strat, because if you're able to target an elite with your poison, it just has to hit that guillotine threshold, and then that kills that enemy, and all your other procs can spread out to the enemies around it. Guillotine's kind of a dirty play for Acrid. It's pretty nice, but outside of that, I mean, yes, you're reducing the work you have to do to kill elites. That's very helpful, especially in later game when you're dealing with like overloading Gups or Elder Lemurians or stuff like that, stuff that has a really big health pool. It's very helpful, but outside of that, it doesn't really have much use, and you would much rather trade up for something else that will help you with every encounter that you're dealing with, not just your elites. Stealth Kit, I will be putting in B tier. I'd be lying if I said Stealth Kit hasn't saved my butt more than once. It happens. Sometimes you get hit, and sometimes you get hit for a lot, but not enough to kill you. But if you get hit again, you're done. Stealth Kit gets you out of those. I will hold on to them, but if I need to make math work to get a round number to use at the soup when I'm going to Mithrix, the Stealth Kit is probably one of the first items to go, because I can rely on my game playing prowess to get me through without it. If you're a newer player and you're just kind of learning the Mithrix fight, this is an item I would absolutely recommend you take. It'll help you, it'll save you, just like it has saved me more than once. Pretty easy B tier in my opinion. It's a take it or leave it situation. If you feel like you're not confident in like a later game situation, it's a very good way to escape the heat. So that's why I put it in B tier. Predatory Instincts, I'm gonna return this one up to the A tier. Predatory Instincts is the other crit based item, which is funny that it goes right next to Scythe on the list, seeing that that's the other one. Instead of healing you though, this gives you increased attack speed for landing crit shots. So once again, more attack speed, more damage output, pretty straightforward. This also has the same benefit as Scythe, where once you pick up a Predatory Instincts, it gives you 5% crit chance. So if you don't have any crit goggles, it at least gives you a chance to proc it. Yeah, just a nice little item. And like, you don't need to be slaying enemies to proc it either. You just need to be hitting enemies. So for me, it's pretty useful. So A tier. Razorwire. This is an item that I am very conflicted on. Through the lens of Eclipse 8 Mithrix, I'm going to put this in instant scrap. But this has a very complicated legacy story behind it. The reason why I put instant scrap is I never want to take, if I can help it, I never want to take Razorwire into the Mithrix fight. Reason being is that if it goes into phase 4 of the fight and he takes my items and I need to be close to him for any reason to attack him, I'm pretty much inviting myself to get killed by my own damage if I have to attack Mithrix up close. Certain characters, I'm a little more lax on this, like if I have, like, say, Railgunner or someone that I know that can hit at a decent range, I'll leave it in my inventory. It's not a big deal. But anybody where I want to be on that little inner circle with Mithrix while he has all my items, I try to drop this item as quickly as possible. So for me, if we're talking about in the viewpoint of someone that's doing Eclipse 8 runs, I recommend getting rid of Razorwire as soon as you can, just because you don't want to be caught holding the bag when it comes to phase 4 of the fight. One thing I will say, Razorwire, very good on melee characters if you have to get down and dirty with the boss, essentially, and just kind of like get yourself all messed up in all the ads and stuff. It can do a lot of good for you, especially when you pair it with like a gasoline. You're going to be outputting a lot of damage. Also, outside of that, very good in Simulacrum, because all you have to do is dip outside of that circle and you're proccing it, and you got Razorwire going everywhere, hurting all the enemies around you. So Razorwire, I have a very conflicted feeling about it. I don't want it in my Eclipse games, but pretty much anywhere else, I will happily have it in my inventory, and I actually have a lot of fun with it. So instant scrap, sorry for the purposes of this tier list, but everywhere else, have fun with it. Okay, Red Whip. Red Whip is gonna go, I'm gonna say it's gonna live in A tier. This is a movement speed item. It only speeds you up when you're out of combat. It speeds you up a decent amount though. I want to say the number 30%, and it stacks linearly 30% per stack. That's substantial when you're talking about speed increase, but it is also only when you're out of combat, so that's why I can't put it in the S tier. It's helpful when you're trying to get around the stage quickly to loot stuff, like say you're done with a teleporter fight and you're just trying to get around and take care of stuff before you move on to the next. Very good because it speeds up that process. If you're moving in between fights, again, speeds up that process, but because it doesn't provide you utility inside of combat, I have to put in the A tier. I guess I should know, if you're dealing like passive damage, like say you have like a little disciple, or like you have ceremonial daggers going out and hitting enemies, it doesn't get rid of your Red Whip. So I guess it's useful in that case. It's still a very good item, but it's gonna live in A tier. Rose Buckler is up next. I'm gonna be putting Rose Buckler in B tier for the sake of, again, looking at this as an Eclipse player. Two things are very good to have, and that is speed and damage reduction or damage mitigation. This gives you some nice damage reduction while you're speedy. So while you're running away from danger or running into danger, whenever you get hit or something surprises you and you get hit, it won't hit you as hard. Pretty easy B tier. It's something that I would scrap if I needed to make scrap, but I'll hold on to it if there's no reason to get rid of it. All right, Squid Polyp. I am putting Squid Polyp in the instant scrap if you're talking about items that you're using in Eclipse. To me, it's just kind of useless. Yeah, it provides extra damage, but it can also cause more trouble than what's worth. They can get corrupted by void ticks, and then they start attacking you. That's really kind of like the only thing I can point to. To me, it's just kind of worthless to have in your inventory. Easy scrap. Trade it up for something better. Up next, Ukulele, and I will be putting Ukulele for the sake of Eclipse. I'll put it in A tier. Very good for mobbing. It's not the most useful when it comes to Mythics, obviously, because it's going to chain around. You would much rather have the Void counterpart to Ukulele if you're going to fight Mythics, but everything leading up to Mythics, this is a good item to have. Not too much more to say about that. His music was electric. It's probably one of the most, if not the most, iconic Risk of Rain items. So I really couldn't put it any lower. I can maybe put it in B, but it's perfectly fine living in A. It does what it does, and it does a good job at it. So Warhorn, I'm gonna put in C tier. What this does is it puts you in a frenzy, so increased movement speed, increased attack speed. It's fine. It's just kind of whatever though. Like, I don't, like, if I have one, if I don't really care. I also don't, unless if I know that I'm gonna have a lot of uptime with my equipment, I'm not gonna really bother keeping it around either. So C tier, pretty easy C tier. Up next, we got Wax Quail. Wax Quail, I will be putting in B tier. This is another mobility item, but instead of jumping up, it kind of launches you forward with your initial jump. This is a good item in moderation. You don't want to get any more than 3 of these, otherwise then it becomes very hard to control your character. I bet I could probably find some footage of me with one too many Wax Quails and just having a miserable time launching myself off platforms and whatnot. Again, it's good. It's a good way to dodge attacks. Like I say, mobility is king when you're doing Eclipse, so I really can't put it any lower than a B tier. because that kind of be against my entire philosophy. But again, in moderation. If you get 3, I would avoid picking up any more. You're just asking for trouble. And then our final green tier item is a Will-O-Wisp. A Will-O-Wisp, for the sake of Eclipse, is going to be living in C, mainly because this is an on-kill effect. And again, your main goal in Eclipse is to be killing Mithrix. And what good is that going to do you? All it does is it spawns an explosion on an enemy when you kill it. It's a fun mobbing item. And if you get a few stacks of this, it's a lot of fun when you're mobbing. So really, it kind of teeters on the B and C tier for me. But when we're talking about going for a boss kill, it becomes kind of pointless, especially for Mithrix. So that's why it is in C tier. All right, on to the boss items. First up, we have Charged Perforator. This one is pretty much guaranteed S tier for me. Both perforators are very good. This one I'd say probably has the edge though, because it's pretty much guaranteed damage on the target that you are hitting, whereas the Molten Perforator, obviously it spreads out the fireballs and the fireballs have to hit. So there's a little bit of like randomness to that. The stats on this read as such: 10% chance to spawn in a lightning strike dealing 500% damage. That's an additional 500% damage per stack. So pretty dang powerful. If you get a couple of these things, you're dealing a lot of damage. It's something that just very directly deals a lot of damage, and it's kind of a no-brainer. If you see one in a printer or if one drops from an overloading worm, you pick that up. So S tier. Up next, we have Empathy Cores. I'm going to put Empathy Cores in A tier. This is a very solid boss item. This summons the two little servitors, I call them, because I'm a Destiny player, but really they're called Souls Probes, and they become your little companions. They have 100% damage. They gain an additional 100% per stack, and they also gain additional damage for every ally on your team. So the reason why it's an A is it's still a really good boss item, but it only really benefits if you are buying a lot of drones and turrets. Having these things help you amp this thing's damage up entirely. I've seen, I mean, you can find it out there somewhere. A lot of creators will post videos of them like just getting 1 or 2 of these and then a bunch of drones and just letting it do its thing on Mithrix. It's crazy how much damage you can crank with this. You just have to be willing to put in the time to be buying drones. And I guess the one thing that kind of sucks is that this is an item you usually don't see until later game, unless if it's in a printer. So like stage 3 and on is really when you see this item. If you're not actively buying drones before that and you get this on stage 4 or 5, well, you can only really power it up as much as drones that spawn on those last couple of stages for you. Still a very good item. If you're able to take advantage of it by buying a bunch of drones, this thing is insane. So A tier. Next, we have Genesis Loop. This drops from Wandering Vagrant. I'm going to put this in Insta Scrap because this is, again, kind of following the philosophy that I have with Medkits, Roll of Pennies, Razorwire, and that is you shouldn't be getting hit, so this item should never be used, and therefore it is useless. Genesis Loop, simply as soon as you fall beneath 25% health, there is like a big radiating blast that goes off of you that deals a whopping 6,000% damage. So it hits very, very hard. Again, your health bar shouldn't be getting to that point anyway. You should be doing everything in your power with damage mitigation and movement speed items to avoid getting to that point. So in my mind, this item is completely useless. So it's a scrap for me. The Halcyon Seed is... This is kind of a weird one. In fact, I don't even know if I should even really include this. It just spawns Aurelian Knight anytime you do the Telber boss. It's very helpful. But it's also like, why are you going? It's something that is like more times than not, you're not going to have this. I'm tempted to not even rank this just because I don't think it really has a rank to be given. I guess we'll just rank it based on its usefulness. Let's just put it in B tier. That's my reasoning behind that is while it is very helpful, it's only helpful during boss fights. So if you're going for a Mithrix kill and just like your standard Eclipse run. You only get 5 stages of that, so it's whatever. So it's B. I could honestly probably put it in C and not really care, but we'll just put it in B because, I mean, when it is active, it does help you out. Up next is Little Disciple, and honestly, this one, I have a soft spot in my heart for Little Disciple. I love these types of items where it basically allows you to run around and just deal damage without doing anything besides running around. I do, however, have to acknowledge that it is not that powerful of an item, and if your character isn't agile or isn't moving fast, it's not very good. I think I'm gonna bump it up. This is also gonna go in B tier for me. Having an item that basically allows you to deal damage while you're trying to escape from something, to me, is very valuable, because even if you don't want to engage with something, you're still taking care of it. If this was like a very biased, like, hey, this is what I like pulling just for the fun of it, I honestly would be putting this in A tier or even S tier, just because I like it so much. I have such a good time with Little Disciple anytime I'm able to get one. I, again, recognize that it's not the most powerful thing. You have to get a lot of other things to proc with it in order for it to be like very viable. Personally, it would be way higher on the list, but if I'm talking like to be helpful to the viewer here that's trying to figure out like what's what, I'd put this in a B tier. It's not like a super sought out thing. It's a lot of fun. Personally, I think it's a lot of fun, but B tier is where it belongs. Mired Urn, you get this from the Clay Dune Strider. I'm gonna put this on A tier, and this is a little bit of an interesting item. It's a solid healing item. It allows, you do need to be in close proximity, so it does work a lot better with your melee characters or close core characters. It also works very well with engineers turrets, because a lot of enemies like to go up to that and swipe it. There's really no downside per se to this. It's just not a very flashy item. It helps you out a lot, pretty much drains the enemy's health into you. Also, another thing you need to be considering when pulling this item is if you need to be close to Mithrix when he takes all your items in phase 4 of his fight, he will use this item against you, so that can cause a lot of pain, especially if you happen to be carrying something like a Void Sent Flame or anything like that that's gonna proc on like the first hit. For the rest of the game, I'd say it belongs solidly in A tier. Molten Perforator, I'm also gonna put in A tier. It's the little brother to the Charged Perforator. You get this from the Magma Worms. Basically, you have, it's like the same type of proc on this. It's the 10% chance to proc it when you hit an enemy with an attack, and basically fireballs bounce off of that enemy, and it can either land back on that enemy or it can land on others. So it has some good AoE. Another thing that's notable with it is that it does synergize with Ignition Tank from Survivors of the Void. So that's a nice little thing to amp your damage up with it. So it's a solid damage item. It's not the most helpful thing on Mithrix. It will, like, if you proc it on Mithrix, it will bounce down and hit him some of the time, but if he's moving quickly, it's probably a lot less likely that you're gonna hit him with it. So it's a little annoying in that regard, but for mobbing and dealing with larger boss enemies, this is really nice because it's basically like on-hit gasoline, kinda. So for that, it belongs in A tier as well. Not as potent as a Charged Perforator, but Molten Perforator, still pretty good. Queensland, I think, belongs in... I'm between these. I guess I'll do C because it does provide some use. It draws aggro from you, spawns in a Beetle Guard as a companion for you. The Beetle Guards aren't all that effective when it comes to combat. They're definitely not nothing, but they're definitely not great either. This is kind of down towards the bottom of the totem pole for me when we're talking about boss items. To me, it's just kind of whatever. I'm usually looking to get rid of it because I don't want to give it to Mithrix, because I don't want to have to worry about Mithrix and a Beetle Guard if I can help it. But if he gets it, it's also kind of whatever. It's a Beetle Guard. It's not that hard to fight. So C tier for me, nothing too impressive, but it's not a game ender if you have it. Up next, we have Planula, and Planula is probably the most, I'd say, situational boss item in the game. Pretty much everybody benefits from it, but really only a few can like truly take advantage of it. What it does is it heals from incoming damage for 15 health plus 15 per stack. So it's basically a supercharged med kit. I'm gonna put this also in C. You don't see this comes from the grandparent, so you don't really see this until stage 5, so you don't have a lot of time with it. And the situations you're put in most cases, at that point of the game doesn't really make good use of it. Like, yes, if you're getting hit a lot for like low amounts of damage from, I'm trying to think of like a good example, I guess like wisps are a good example, and it can supercharge your healing. And then also stuff like using like seekers, ball attacks that take away damage, or anything that kind of like any stuff like Rex benefits from this too, where you self-inflict damage. It can make you very powerful by negating those effects, but outside of that, it's just a supercharged medkit. Once again, this is the only item really that, in my opinion, taking damage is okay, because if we're talking about Eclipse 8, this does tend to negate the Eclipse 8 effect, and you don't really lose much of your health bar when you have this active, but it still does happen. C tier, it's not something I'm super seeking out unless if I have to like really build into it. So like again, if I'm playing Seeker, and I just want to roam around in my ball forever and make a super impactful explosion by staying in it. So like these are like little situations that Planula does work out very well, but again, very situational, so C tier. And then up next we have the GOAT, Shatter Spleen. Shatter Spleen, I am going to put in S tier. Shatter Spleen is interesting, whereas it's the one item I'd say that has very little application or usefulness in Mithrix, besides the fact that if you have full crit, it's a very easy way to apply bleed. It's basically like a way to circumvent a lack of tri-tip daggers. If you have a lot of crit, you basically get 100% bleed or close to it, or whatever the percentage crit is. That's one positive about it. It's kind of a 2 items in 1 type deal. If you have bleed applied to a character, once that character dies, they will explode for 400% damage, which it stacks linearly at an additional 400% per stack, plus an additional 15% of their maximum health. So, and that also stacks linearly at an additional 15%. So for mobbing, Shatter Spleen is probably one of the, if not the best item in the game when it comes to mobbing, especially if you're able to get a lot of crit. It's extremely effective at dealing damage. I have a couple of runs posted to my channel. I'll link them in the cards above if you want to check them out, where I do have 100% crit and I do pull a Shatter Spleen or two, and it's super fun. Everything explodes. It's real easy. It's a lot of fun to watch. So yes, Shatter Spleen, absolutely an S tier. It carries its utility all the way through the game, so it belongs up in the top tier. And then finally, in the boss items today, we have Titanic Knurl. This item increases your maximum health by 40, an additional 40 per stack, and base health regeneration by 1.6. So basically it just kind of gives you a nice little bump to your healing. I'm gonna put this in C tier. It's one of those things where, at least in Eclipse, you pick it up, you don't really notice it's there. It does its job, but with your healing halved essentially in Eclipse, you don't really notice it that much. Maybe paired with a rejuve rack or two, which more on that in a bit. I'd say you maybe feel a little bit, or like if you got a Shrine of the Mountain and got 2 of these guys off rip, you would be feeling it. But I honestly wouldn't really hold on to these, especially if you see another boss item printer. I trade up for pretty much anything else besides a Genesis Loop or a Queen's Gland. I mean, it's there. It provides you a service. It's not an instant scrap for me. It can have its uses if you're struggling to find healing, but that's about where I'll leave it. And now we're to the heavy hitters, the red items. So we're starting with the 57 leaf clover, which belongs up in the S tier. If you don't know what 57 leaf clover does, basically it's your good luck charm. It basically doubles all of your chances for proccing things. So how it works on paper is all random effects rolled +1 per stack times for a favorable outcome. So basically, whenever you have a proc chance and say that proc chance doesn't proc, Clover takes that and re-rolls that chance again in a favorable outcome for you. So basically, it's doubling your proc chance. This pairs very well with stuff like crit, ATGs, ukuleles, tri-tip daggers, anything that operates off of a proc chance. You're benefiting greatly from this. It also helps you with stuff like Shrines of Chance. It increases your luck there. as well. So all around, like, you're just doubling your luck. And in a game that has so much proc chance and like percentages and stuff, that's a very good tool to have. And then we go from probably the most valuable red item to what I would argue the least valuable red item, and that is the Aegis. I usually put this in the instant scrap, and here's why, at least for Eclipse. So what Aegis basically does is it allows you to overheal. So like, say if you have an item like a Scythe or a Leeching Seed that heals you actively, or just anything that heals you. If you're at full health, that doesn't heal you any further because you're at full health. Aegis gets rid of that barrier and allows you to overheal. And then that healing decays off quickly after the healing is applied. So in most cases, if we're talking about just a standard 5-stage run that goes to Mithrix, you're probably not getting enough healing to benefit from this item in any useful way. I will say, if you are looping, or if you're in Simulacrum and you are going in like 2 hours in a run or something, and you just have all these items that are healing you, then you'll probably see some benefit. And I'm not even saying that you won't see the benefit in an Eclipse run, but more often than not, you won't, and you'd much rather give it up for either another red item in a printer or a stack of white items in a soup. So for me, it's probably one of the most useless red items when it comes to running Eclipse. It does have its usefulness, especially with some characters that can self-heal, Void Fiend being the prime example of this. Using that utility healing ability is very helpful, and you can overheal fairly easily with that. Also works very well with Seeker as well, because there's a lot of healing going on there, so being able to overheal that, also very good. Rex is another good one that takes advantage of Aegis fairly well too. Up next, we got Alien Head. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I don't hate this item. Actually, this is one of the items that when I see it, I get excited. It's just a flat reduction in all of your cooldown times. Very straightforward there. The more you get, the more cooldowns. So if you're able to get a couple of these, your cooldowns are next to nothing. Every stack reduces your cooldowns by 25%. Very helpful on every character. I mean, there's not really any character that doesn't suffer from cooldowns. I mean, obviously, if you see it, pick it up. It's not very flashy, but it's very useful. So that's Alien Head. Brainstalks. I'm gonna put Brainstalks in C. Reason being is that Brainstalks isn't very useful in most combat situations outside of like when you're looping and you have a lot of elites. If we're talking again about Eclipse, yeah, you do have elites, and it does proc, but you're not going to proc it once in the Mithrix fight. Most times when you are procking it, you're not really thinking in the moment, oh, I got Brainstalks proc, time to just start spamming my most powerful abilities until it goes away. It's one of those things that kind of makes you drop what you're doing actively in combat and just do something else, which I don't really like. It's useful. It's definitely useful in mobbing, but outside of that, it's pretty useless. So C tier. Brilliant Behemoth is up next, and this guy is gonna go up into the 8th. It's really teetering between A and S for me. I'm gonna just go S tier, because this is pretty much a flat increase to your damage across the board. Pretty much any attack will benefit from this. All your attacks explode in a 4 meter, which also increases 2.5 meters per stack, for a bonus 60% total damage to all nearby enemies. So the damage doesn't scale, but the radius does. So this is a sneaky, if you're able to get your hands on more than one of them, a sneaky AoE item that does help. The extra damage, obviously very nice. I mean, it's not a crazy amount. It's 60%, so it's not even a crit goggle worth of damage. But especially when you're mobbing, being able to spread that damage out evenly across to everyone, that's pretty awesome. And also it's just satisfying. I mean, explosions. Enough said. Explosions. It's a good item. You could convince me to put it back down into A tier. It really teeters between these two because it's not, I guess, the most powerful, but it's flashy and I like it, so that's why it's an S tier for me. Speaking of flashy, probably one of my favorite red items, because again, it's one of those items similar to Little Disciple where like you just kind of need to get the chain going and then everything else takes care of itself. And that's why I love Ceremonial Daggers so much. But I need to be realistic here, and I'm going to put this in the B tier. It's not very good for Mithrix. Obviously, for mobbing, it's very good. For those who do not know, the Ceremonial Daggers will, upon killing an enemy, fire out 3 homing daggers that deal 150% damage. That damage stacks an additional 150% per stack. It's fun because you kill a single enemy and then these daggers just go zoop to the next enemy and zoop to the other one, and you can chain them all together if you're hitting hard enough. It's super satisfying. It does work along with stuff like Behemoth, like your attacks will explode if you have a Behemoth in as well. It's super fun for obvious reasons, like just describing the item. It's not very useful in the Mithrix boss fight because besides phase 3, there's not ads on the field, so you can't proc this unless if you have a Forgive Me Please, which by the way, as soon as I get a ceremonial daggers to drop in a run, I immediately try to get a Forgive Me Please. I will hold on to the daggers if I get a Forgive Me Please, because when you put that down, it just spawns endless daggers. And again, it's just like, let the game work for you. That's a bunch of free damage. It's one of those things where like a lot of players will like roll their eyes. It's like, really? Like, you could be doing so many other better things. I just have a stupid good time with it. I have to recognize that, yes, outside of its mobbing capabilities, it's just not that great of an item. So B tier is where it belongs for this list. But if I'm ranking my personal favorite red items, this one is near the top, if not on top for me. I love ceremonial daggers. Moving on, we have Dio's Best Friend. This one's an A tier for me. This is not flashy at all, and I don't really need to spend a lot of time on it. It just gives you an extra life. There's really nothing else that goes to it. A lot of players that play this a lot of the diehards like myself, we don't need this item very much because we're just good at not dying. But I cannot discount the usefulness to people that are just learning or just starting their Eclipse journey. Dios is very helpful, and it will get you through a lot of runs, and it will save you a lot of times. So Dios is definitely up there for me. It's not an S tier because it's not flashy whatsoever, but it sure is useful. So Dios Best Friend, A tier, easy. Frost Relic we got up next. I'm gonna put Frost Relic in the I'm gonna put it in the C tier. It forms a bubble, a nice bubble around you upon killing an enemy. That deals damage. So basically, if an enemy gets near you, they get all damaged in the little ice aura that you have around you. They're really, I don't have to really go too in depth on this. I mean, it's a fine item. It provides next to no usefulness for you in the Mithrix fight, but it obviously does for mobbing because you're killing enemies and that bubble forms around you, and it deals damage against enemies that are charging you, whether they be like melee or chargers or whatever. It's a useful item for sure. It looks cool. It feels like, I don't know if this is fact or not. It feels like it slows you down, but I don't think it actually slows you down. I think the field of view just changes and it makes you feel slower. It does slow the enemies down though by 80%. That should be noted. It does chill off the enemies a little bit, so that's an additional bonus. For me, I just don't like this item very much. Again, no usefulness in the Mithrix fight, so use it while you're mobbing, but outside of that, kind of similar to Brain Stalks, it's kind of a whatever item in my opinion, so C tier. And then up next, we have the headset or the head stomper, or I don't even know like what you actually refer to this as. I've heard it as both. This one's a pretty easy S tier, especially in Eclipse. So what this does is it increases your jump height, and when you're up in the air, you can hold down, for me it's my interact button, and it sends you slamming into the ground and creates a shockwave that can do massive damage. It's based on how high up you are and you slam from, that determines the damage. It's anywhere between 1,000 to 10,000%. So those numbers speak for themselves. That's a lot of damage. For me, what makes this an S tier, especially for Eclipse, is the fact that this makes it so no matter what character you are, you take 0 fall damage. And considering that one of the Eclipse modifiers doubles the fall damage and makes it lethal, this is a godsend of an item if you get it. No longer do you have to worry about, oh no, my Hopoo's out, I'm gonna hit the ground and take a bunch of damage. It's like this item is your savior. Damage aside, and yeah, again, if you get a lot of speed and a lot of mobility and you can shoot yourself into the air and slam everything, you can wipe an entire stage, and it's super fun. It's not the most useful in Mithrix, but you can definitely still use it. You can definitely still jump up to the ceiling. It's not a very high ceiling in that arena and slam him. It's still a very good item. But just for its movement capabilities and the damage mitigation on no longer taking fall damage, That is huge, and that is why the Head Stompers are in the S tier. Moving on, we have Happiest Mask, and for me, Happiest Mask is probably gonna be it's really between C and Instant. I think I'm gonna put Happiest Mask in C. What this does, it has a chance on killing an enemy to spawn a ghost of that enemy that is your companion. That companion's health does tick down over time, so he's not there forever, just until he gets killed or until his health bar runs out. This item is fine. It's more helpful when you're mobbing, because any enemy you kill has a chance to come and be your teammate for a little bit. Not very helpful for Mithrix until phase 3, when you start getting ads on the field and then you get that little extra firepower. It's kind of one of those items that I roll my eyes at. If I get it out of my legendary chest on stage 4, it's kind of whatever. So Happiest Mask, take it or leave it. Personally, I tend to leave it more often than not, but it's not an instant scrap. Moving along, we have the Hard Light Afterburner, which gives you an additional 2 stacks of your utility skill. I'm gonna put this in A tier. It also stacks linearly, an additional 2 stacks per stack of your action skill. That's a lot of stacks. This is very useful because obviously more of any character's abilities is a good thing. There really isn't, I'm trying to think of utility skills in the game that doesn't benefit from this, like if they're just kind of one-offs, and there really isn't any. Like pretty much every character's utility skill is something you want to have stacks of. So Hard Light Afterburner is a great thing to have. Don't really have to explain too much like a lot of these items. It's just more stuff that you can do damage with, so it's good. A tier. Moving on, we have Interstellar Desk Plant, and this one is an instant scrap for me. This is probably one of the most annoying items in the game. Not that like really harms you in any way, it's just annoying that this is a red item, and I feel like we could have come up with something better. What this does is upon killing an enemy, a little plant spawns that gives you a healing pool on the ground. If you're killing a bunch of enemies in a small confined area, congratulations, you have more healing than you'll ever need. Obviously going to be pointless at Mithrix because there's nothing, unless if you have a Forgive Me Please and you just spawn like a pool of like 10 of them, or however many times that procs during the single use of the equipment. Even still, you're standing still. It falls in the same category as the Bungus does, the Bustling Fungus does. You shouldn't be standing still or staying in a small confined area if you can help it. That doesn't really lead to success in this game, so instant scrap. Moving along, then we got New Kahana's Opinion. This is one that I'm kind of torn on, although I think I will be putting it lower. So what this does is upon healing, it fires Seekers, damaging Seekers out to nearby enemies. Kind of similar to Little Disciple, but instead of being movement based, it's based on healing. Some characters definitely take more advantage of this item than others. Seeker in particular, if you use her fist secondary, it launches an insane amount of Seekers when you use that. So if I see a New Kahana's I'm playing a Seeker, I will absolutely be taking it. But a lot of other enemies, you don't really see a lot of usefulness out of it. The Seekers don't hit that hard either, at least they don't feel like they hit that hard. So it's not a wasted item per se, because as long as you have some sort of active healing going on, you'll see benefit from this item. But I mean, in the hierarchy of red items, it's kind of down there. So C. Rejuve Rack. This is another one where I'm kind of in between a C and a insta scrap. I guess just because it does have some sort of usefulness, I'm gonna put it in C. I know I'll probably get a lot of flack from the diehard community on this one, but the reason why I put it here is, again, like I just kind of said, even though it's not the most effective item in Eclipse, it still gives you some use. There is an Eclipse modifier that basically halves all your health regeneration, so this basically gets you up to base health when everything is all said and done. So really, this item is a red item that gets you up to status quo. And obviously it also amps up any of the other healing items that you have along with you. So stuff like Planula gets affected, Neural gets affected. So it does have some use, but again, similar to New Kahana's, similar to Happiest Mask, pretty much all the red items in the C category, it's a take it or leave it. I would definitely part ways with it for a better red item, but if it's there, it's not hurting anybody because it's a healing item. Then up next we got Resonance Disc. I'm gonna be playing Resonance Disc. Oh man, I'm gonna go C tier with Resonance Disc as well. I know the C tier is kind of filling up here, but this item is obviously only really good for mobbing. What it does is as you get kills, it charges up a counter. I believe, what is it? It's 4 enemies in 10 seconds. Let me check that. 4 enemies in 7 seconds, and it then launches a disc forward for 300% damage. That stacks linearly for an additional 300% per stack, and then that explodes for 1000% damage, which also stacks linearly at 1000% per stack. And that also strikes all enemies kind of in its path as it's traveling to its point. So as far as like a damage item, it's good, but it's only good for mobbing. So Mithrix, you won't see a lot of use with this, but getting you to Mithrix, it does help quite a bit. C tier, it's kind of a mediocre item in the grand scheme, so yeah. Up next, we got Meat Hooks. I'm going to put Meat Hooks in the B tier. This kind of falls into the similar thing as daggers, except for I think it's probably a bit more useful than daggers. It's more flashy than useful. They're basically, what this item does is it gives you a 20% chance to fire homing hooks at up to 10 enemies for 100% total damage. So basically it's like a uke that deals a lot more damage is basically what it is. A very good mobbing tool, extremely good early item game. If you're lucky enough to get this thing to drop on a stage 1 or 2, you will have a very easy time working your way through those stages. So B tier, solid red item. Moving on to Shattering Justice. And Shattering Justice, I'm gonna put in A. Basically, as you hit an enemy, you apply a debuff to them. You reach the max stacks of those debuffs after hitting an enemy 5 times, and that reduces their armor by 60, which also goes up by 8 per stack of this item. So basically it weakens the enemies. This also counts as a debuff that works towards Death Mark, which is also very helpful. It's just a nice thing to apply more damage. Obviously works very good with Mithrix because it's a single target item. You get the debuff put on him and you're doing a lot more damage, so that's good. Soulbound Catalyst. This one's a bit more situational. I'm gonna put Soulbound in the B slot. Soulbound essentially rewards you with a reduced equipment cooldown time by killing enemies. So kills reduce equipment cooldown by 4 seconds. That increases by 2 seconds for every stack of this item that you have in your inventory. This is pretty good for mobbing. Obviously, I know I sound like a broken record. Unfortunately, this is a lot of the red items in the game. It's not very helpful on Mithrix unless if you have ads on the field. If you have a damage equipment, especially a damage equipment that has a very large cooldown time, like a Praeon Accumulator, this item benefits you greatly. By getting kills, you basically are able to spam your equipment and deal a lot more damage. So a solid item. So yeah, that is Soulbound Catalyst. Moving on, we have Unstable Tesla Coil. This is gonna go into the A tier. This is a solid damage item. This item periodically fires up and it shoots out lightning and hits nearby targets. It hits up to 3 enemies. I believe, yeah, it's 3 enemies, and it adds more enemies per stack for 200% damage every like half second or so, and then the Tesla coil switches off. So downside to this item is that it does have downtime. There's times where it's just not active, but when it is active, it definitely helps kind of clear the enemies out from around you. If you're kind of backed into a corner or in trouble for any reason, this can definitely get you out of a bind. It's helpful for Mithrix because as you're running around and say you're having like a hard time landing shots, but you're next to him while he's trying to swing his hammer at you, it's a very good way to put additional damage on him. And it will also like apply stuff like Shattering Justice to him as well. So that's a nice little synergy there. One downside to this item though is if you gotta be close to Mithrix in phase 4 and you have this item, you can't really be close to him because he will zap you. So you gotta time it for when it's on its downtime to actually do your damage. But other than that, it's a really good item to have for the entire game. Definitely worth picking up and keeping. And then unfortunately we kind of end this on a snoozer, eh? We have Wake of Vultures for our final item, and I'm gonna put this on the instant scrap. It's not useless, it's kind of flashy, but to me, it's just it's kind of annoying and useless for Mithrix. So what this does is when you kill an elite, you get the powers of that elite. So if you kill an overloading, you get half of your health as shield, and all your attacks have put the overloading orbs on the enemies that explode for additional damage. Blazing, you obviously become blazing, you deal fire damage, and you also have a fire trail behind you. Glacial, you slow enemies on hit. So it's cool, but it's also kind of like, well, I'm only dealing with those enemies when I'm mobbing, and then when I'm mobbing, the effect is only around for such a long time that I feel like it's not even really worth having. For a red item, it's just kind of disappointing. I would definitely get rid of it for pretty much any other red item in the game besides maybe Interstellar Desk Plant. To me, it's just like, it's such a weird thing that it doesn't really grant you enough benefit to warrant keeping it around. It's worthless in Mithrix because there are no elites that spawn in that stage, so it literally is just wasting space in your inventory. And even on the moon, it doesn't, I mean, you get perfected powers if you kill a perfected elite on that stage, but that's about it. That'll do it for this tier list of base game items in Risk of Rain 2. What do you guys think about my tier list, and what would you change? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like. If you like this content and want to see more, I welcome you to subscribe. We try to post one Risk of Rain run on the channel every week. We also stream Risk of Rain twice a week. So if you're a Risk of Rain fan, you want to be here, trust me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.